I just want everybody to be safe.
Yeah.
And happy.
I was really afraid you were going to say, I just want everybody to get along.
No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, even we aren't that disillusioned. Hello.
How did voting go?
It was weirdly kind of fun.
Yeah? That's good.
I mean, that was one thing that I definitely wanted to talk about, that I swear to God, every time I go, I like voting.
I mean,
I don't know, it just makes me happy once I'm there doing it.
It kind of reminds you that you are part of a community, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like the rest of, like, especially now, like I'm early voting and I'm just waiting, and now I'm just like in total despair for like, I don't trust the rest of the country. But I personally like voting.
Do you have a tagline?
Oh, I feel like I thought of something this morning and it is completely 100% out of my brain.
I mean, I kind of have one.
Okay.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
And welcome back to an episode of Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where somewhere we're out there screaming.
Very accurate at all times.
I'm Christina.
And I'm Lauren.
And today, the day that this comes out, is Election Day in the United States. And so we wanted to do an episode. Well, first of all, I want to read a comment we got from a listener before we do anything else.
Yeah, because it was a suggestion. It was a good one.
Yeah, so before we get into where we're at, I kind of want to tease what this episode will be about and kind of talk about what it won't be about also.
Fair enough, yeah.
So we got a message from Madeline, who has been listening to us for a while. We love her. She said, have you guys considered addressing handling mental health during such a contentious election? My anxiety is through the roof, and I'm guessing that's the case for a lot of us, regardless where anyone falls on the political spectrum. Just a thought. Thanks for considering the idea and for all you both give to us listeners. So we thought that was just a really good idea and also such a lovely message.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were kind of brainstorming about how we should approach it. I mean, in the past, we've kind of shied away from politics explicitly on this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be obvious what we don't believe in.
Yeah. So I feel like we've at least alluded to the general idea of how we feel, but I mean, we're not here to like shout in your face and be like, vote like me.
Yeah. I mean, Lauren and I are even pretty different, I feel like.
Yeah.
But we both feel the same anxiety, as do all of you, I'm sure. And so we wanted to just kind of be there for y'all with some words of comfort, or not. Maybe we'll just scream the whole time.
Maybe we'll just remind you of what's going on and make you more anxious.
Well, but also we wanted to share some stories from past elections.
Yeah, and just like how it makes us feel in general.
Yeah, I think that's all we need for a teaser.
Okay.
Did I miss anything?
I mean, we'll get into it, obviously. We got a whole episode.
Okay, you're right. It's like not even 5 minutes. I'm freaking out.
I started to say something and then I forgot in the middle.
Oh my God. Oh, this is going about as well as I thought it would. Lauren, where the fuck are you at this week?
Wow. Let me tell you about my last day and a half or so. And before you can even get after me for it, I have already thought about this, and, I'm going to tell you a wild story, but I also have thought about how it relates to my mental health, because that will be very relevant in the more recent few hours.
Oh my God, I'm so proud of you.
So, I guess it would be Wednesday night at about 12:30 at night. I must have probably just fallen asleep. Then I am woken up by what sounds to somebody, who has just been woken up out of a sound sleep and can't say for sure, like a string of 6 or 7 gunshots.
Oh my God. Not again.
Yeah. Now, my neighbors across the hall from me, they are always yelling and screaming at each other and fighting and everything. I mean, usually I try to have a sense of humor about it when they're being annoying, because it seems like one of them is always shut out of the house and banging on the door to be let in. And I can hear our back kitchen doors are obviously also next to each other. And I heard the guy like banging on the door one night. He's like, "Don't do me like that. Don't you do me like that." And I'm just sitting there in my kitchen. I'm like, yeah, don't do him like that.
Drama.
Right. So I heard that. And then I hear, him yelling in the hall. It sounds like he goes outside at some point and is still, like yelling and screaming. And I'm trying to convince myself so that I can maybe get back to sleep. Like, it probably was just them like throwing things because they're mad, right? That wasn't gunshots. And then, because my bedroom window on the ground floor looks out onto the little side street, and then there are red and blue flashing lights in my window. Eventually, clearly there are like cops on foot with, like big like floodlight flashlights, because every once in a while one of those like sweeps through my window.
Oh my God, this is at like 1 a.m. at this point, right?
I can hear them come in. They're like pounding on the door, on my neighbor's door, and I'm not, like hearing any response. And they're searching around again. They're going to the back door, pounding on that door. And finally, about an hour and a half, then just all of these bright lights that have been shining in my window just go dark and they're gone.
So what happened with your neighbors? Like, where are your neighbors?
I have no idea.
What?
What I'm assuming is, like after whatever happened, that guy was out there screaming. And I think, he was only doing that for a few minutes. I think by the time that was done, he had actually just took off.
Well, yeah, I don't blame him.
They're not finding anybody. And the next day when I got home from work, I saw it looked like the door had probably been forced open because there's bare wood, like where it got like scratched off at the side. And that's what my friend said. She's like, that looks like a way that they can force the door open without like kicking it in. I was like, okay. So they did get inside.
Oh my God. Fucking Missouri.
On top of that, I'm sitting up in bed, frozen, holding Pico, like, how am I going to get back to sleep? And I know it was that feeling where it's like you just are getting to fall back to sleep. And then my phone goes off because there was a tornado watch in the area.
Oh my God.
And then the tornado sirens go off.
What?
Yes.
You're kidding me.
Even more nuts about that is they said, like, there's a tornado watch. It was only for a half hour. And I sat up the whole time and I'm just like, there is no storm. There is no wind. It looks totally calm, mid temperature outside. I don't.
And the sirens are going off?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I've just been standing here with my mouth open. Like, that is crazy.
Yeah. So that was a rough night. And then last night we had D&D at Vicky's house. Shout out, Vicky.
Come be on the podcast.
And as I'm driving home, after one night of getting no sleep, I am 7 miles from home. And suddenly I find myself in the middle of complete standstill traffic.
Okay.
4 lanes of the highway. Nobody is moving. I'm looking at my GPS, like I said, 7 miles, and it's saying like, it'll take 20 minutes. And then it jumps up to 35. And then it jumps up to 55. And then it jumps up to an hour and a half. So,
oh my God.
I'm gonna die.
Do you know what it was?
It had to have been an accident.
Yeah.
Because, luckily, it did only take them a half hour, not an hour and a half to clear it all up. But they were funneling it into 1 lane road at that point. But I couldn't even see what accident happened.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting visibly anxious as you're telling that story, just because car accidents always made me nervous. But earlier this year, a friend of mine died in a car accident. And now I always think about the victims,
I mean, while I'm sitting there, and this is probably more like my direct history, I just think that you can't trust anybody and you don't know what anyone's going to do. So I'm thinking okay, now we're all in standstill traffic. So everyone's getting frustrated and irritated. Someone's just going to run out of their car and pull some crazy shit. And how am I going to get away? I'm surrounded by cars.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what freaked me out while I was sitting there.
That's crazy.
But so what I thought of, mostly, the situation with the neighbors, when I got home, that when you get to a point where you're like, I do not feel okay, just in general, mentally and everything. My brain does not feel like a safe space right now. I don't feel okay. And I realized, well, that makes sense because with stuff that's going on, I mean, it's similar to, we've talked a few times about how financial stress can affect your mental health because it's a basic need. You need money to buy the basics. So when you can't guarantee that, it does affect like everything. And I was like, this is a similar thing. I mean, it's a home, it's safety, and I don't feel like I can count on that. So it's like there's not something specific. It's not, like, oh, I am having panic attacks and I need to work on that. I'm lost in eating disorder thoughts and I have to go through that. It's like just a general, I don't feel okay. And I feel like it's just when a basic thing is not guaranteed.
Well, yeah. And that's another example of something that you can't fix with therapy.
Exactly.
You can't fix with meds. Like, you can do all the self-improvement you want, but it's like when we were talking about what we hate about DBT.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't give me a worksheet and tell me how to solve it.
Exactly. And I don't know how to fix it. Like, obviously, you can't just move overnight. You can't solve all these societal problems on your own. I mean, I think it's indicative of just the time we're living in. I think a lot of people feel that way, that they don't have access to basic needs.
Yeah.
And that you can't take anything for granted.
Just like that futility, I feel like that's what like invades your brain and just, I don't know, makes it hard to do other like basic things because you can't guarantee anything.
We got to go back to futility at some point because I feel like a lot of people are feeling in the face of this particular election, I feel like a lot of people feel like what they're doing is futile.
So that's me. Where are you at?
It's been an okay week. I had another interview for the hotline operator job, and it went really well. I'm at this crossroads, though, where I'm trying to decide what to do with my life.
What do I do with my life?
Well, no, I mean,
I know what you mean, though.
I'm trying to decide what to do in the next few months, and what I decide in the next few months will kind of impact the way my life moves forward. So it's a lot of pressure. So basically, I've been waiting for disability for almost a year now. I got denied. I'm currently being reconsidered. But in the meantime, I'm finally properly medicated. I have a lot of support. My writing is really taking off. The podcast is going great. I'm working. And I'm thinking to myself, am I even disabled at all? Like, do I still need this? Should I just like give up on disability and just live my fucking life? Because right now I feel like because I can only work 16 hours a week and still be eligible, I'm very limited in what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like I'm putting my life on hold for something that's not even guaranteed. But at the same time, we know that these things are cyclical.
Yeah, it's like we can't see the future. So you can't say like, am I going to regret one of these decisions or maybe the other? Yeah,
it's just the indecision of it all. And also the fact that I don't really have any control.
If you decide like, I'm going to go with life as it is, I think, I'm on a good path. And then everything falls apart again, then do you have to like start from square one with disability?
Yeah, like let's say I do great for a year and then I break down again, I would have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
But also that's a huge what if.
Right.
And as we'll talk about plenty in this episode, I'm sure all we have is the present and all we can do is all we can do,
mm-hmm.
And also I don't like the idea of depending on the government.
Fair.
I mean, obviously, I've been feeling really restless and uneasy this whole week.
And I would be curious, like, I mean, I do, like, 100% want you to take that hotline job. But I'm also curious, when you're doing a job that makes you feel fulfilled, that might also have an additional help.
Oh, totally. I mean, even talking to the people, I got kind of a taste of that. And I also met with one of the harm reduction organizers in my community about doing an event centered around eating disorders.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned that last week.
You mentioned you were thinking of it, yeah.
Yeah, we met for coffee and we're going to try to do something in January or February.
Cool.
But yeah, I feel like I do have a lot of purpose these days and it is helping me.
As it does for most people.
As it does. But yeah, it's a new feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like very shaky, like a newborn giraffe, I feel like any wrong step, any wrong decision, and I could just like fall on my face.
I can't believe I haven't had this observation before. But what you sound like is me around this time last year.
Wait, do tell.
Because that was me. I mean, what?
Well, remind the listeners and remind me.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to like add up in my head. I was like, when did I get out of treatment last year? It was August. Yeah, so I would have been like 3 months out. I want to say maybe that was when I was like starting to try the band that didn't end up working out, but I was getting into that scene again. I definitely had started Ariel at that point, and I was doing okay in supporting myself, and I was just kind of like, is my life gonna be okay? It just was this weird kind of feeling like, am I kind of doing it?
It's so scary though, because I feel like the second I say that, something bad will happen. And I know everyone says that.
I think both of us have a lot of evidence that proves that can happen, is why it scares us.
Well, and that's just life.
Yeah.
Bad things happen. And I don't know, I was talking to my therapist about the whole disability thing, and I was actually giving a voice to these thoughts for the first time, like maybe I'm not actually disabled. And even saying that to you now feels really shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been pretending for attention or something.
Yeah, that's totally what I thought.
Well, that's what you would think if you were in my position, probably.
Yes.
But you talking about yourself last year kind of makes me think of seasons in life, and how, when I first applied for disability, that was a huge step for me because it was me acknowledging the severity of my mental illness and the impact it had on my life for the first time. It was me asking for help and admitting that I needed a lot of help.
Yeah.
And I think that led to a lot of growth. But now I feel like as I continue to just wait around for disability, I'm not growing anymore. Or rather, it's prohibiting new growth.
Yeah. Like the growth of you admitting I can't do this on my own has happened, and now it's stagnant unless you can find another way to grow.
So yeah, I think I know what I want to do. It's just, it feels like giving up on a dream, even though it sounds stupid to say disability was my dream.
It was my dream, but I know what you mean. But, like it was something that you made a decision for yourself, and it was needed at the time.
And it was the only way I could think about the future. Mm-hmm. That was the only future I saw for myself. When I was in the psych ward in February, I did a little writing exercise where I wrote about how I want to see myself in a year, best case scenario. And I wrote, I want to be on disability. I want to be in Section 8 housing. I want to be writing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And my therapist made me realize that I've now like surpassed that dream. Like that's no longer the best case scenario. Like it made me really emotional when I realized, like, oh my God, I don't know. Things have gotten better and I'm no longer in that place.
I know, both of us are so scared to admit that. It's like, did things get a little better?
Well, with that said, we should talk about how everything is about to get lots worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is election day today. If you're listening, hopefully you voted or you're about to vote, and you're probably feeling a lot of things.
I decided to today.
Yeah, Lauren is fresh off voting. I voted absentee a few weeks ago. I didn't get a sticker, which is sad.
Aw. I'm pretty sure I have always voted in person. This might be the only time I did not vote on the actual election day.
Well, so let's get the stories started.
Okay.
Well, when was the first time you voted?
So I would have turned 21 4 months before the first Bush 2 election, I think.
So that was 2008? No.
2008 was Obama.
2004?
2000.
2000.
Yeah.
I was 8 years old.
So that was the first presidential election that I was eligible to vote in, and I am ashamed to say the only one I did not.
I mean, I think you'll find you're not alone.
No, and that was actually why I specifically knew I wanted to bring that one up, because, I mean, I was in college at that time, so I would have had to have gotten, an absentee ballot, and if it's difficult to do that now, it was way difficult then. You had to go through a lot of crap and make sure that you got it in time, and there was like only probably one way to, like request one, and you had to by a certain deadline, which I didn't do. And on top of that, I thought of that time and I was like, well, yeah, I remember that year in school and I had so much stress and my mental health was tanked. So really, I'm not surprised that I could not get my shit together to get an absentee ballot by, like 3 or 4 weeks before the election. So I give myself grace for it now. But I think, yeah, I just wanted to point out that it's like, I would always encourage everybody to vote if you're able to, of course, but if it just was something, kind of out of your control, you don't have to feel ashamed about the fact that you weren't able to.
Well, that's what I hate lately on the internet is people are shaming each other for not voting. They're shaming each other for voting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been guilty of this too.
I mean, it's like almost anything in life that it is, you do not know the other person's story.
Yeah.
So you can sit there and judge just because all you know is that they happen to not vote. But that's all you know.
Yeah. And voting is important, but also, I don't know if I can say this.
Oh, no.
It doesn't make, oh God. It's gonna suck no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, the two-party system is extremely flawed. At this point, we're kind of screwed regardless.
Yeah. And I definitely went through the whole, like, it doesn't matter. Why am I even bothering? But I guess, at least to me, I feel like you're not really making your point then by just not showing up because you don't think it matters.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, I get it, and I do agree. And I just definitely agree, like, I hate the two-party thing.
Yeah, I mean, and local elections are really important too.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I actually researched the local candidates, and it wasn't like extensive research. It was only like 10 minutes, full disclosure, but that's more than I've done in previous years.
Yeah, I did feel more informed than I ever have at this one.
Well, yeah, and
cool.
That's what I want to say is that you can, like, even if you feel like your vote might not make a difference, even if you feel like you're screwed no matter what, you can always educate yourself more.
I found somewhere to look up before I went in all of the propositions and amendments on there, and I found somewhere that basically, like, put it in simple language and then put in like a single sentence, like, if you vote yes for it, it means this. If you vote no, it means this. Because they word them so confusing. And it's so hard to, sometimes just like sit there and try and make sense of it in your brain. So I was like, I want to know 10 words or less. What is this saying?
Well, yeah, and they don't make it easy by design.
So I was in line for about an hour and a half. I met this lovely older woman named Anna today in front of me. We talked almost the entire time we were in line. We knew better. We barely talked about actual election things, but a couple things came up. And one of them, she said, I think when we were talking about the little things that you know nothing about, and she's like, yeah, I know. She's like, and then there's always, a whole page full of the judges, and they go down to like district judges and everything. Like, do you want to keep this one, or do you want to, or do you not want to? And she said, my dad always said, vote them all out. No one should get too comfortable.
All right.
I just got a kick out of that.
That's one way to do it. Total upheaval every time. I guess I'm feeling a little overwhelmed just because of the, like Madeline said in her message, the tumultuous nature of this. Hold on, what word did she use? Contentious.
Yeah.
I feel like because this is coming out on election day, we have to say just the right thing, and we have to make people feel better. And I guess that's why it's hard for me right now to know what to say, because I feel like nothing we do will make it easier. Like, we're all still going to have to go through the anxiety and then the aftermath.
No. And, a coworker pointed out, like, somehow I had conveniently blocked this shit out of my memory, thinking of like the last couple of elections, at least. It's like, we're not going to know on election day,
Well, yeah.
It always takes them like a week or more to officially call it and everything like that. So yeah, when this comes out, everyone's just going to be like feeling lost.
Well, and also I think like America thinks the world revolves around them. And at the end of the day, it is important, but it is just another election. Like, the world will move on. You will still be here. Your loved ones will still be here. And there's still shit that you should and can do. Can and should do. I don't know.
Yeah.
It reminds me of past elections like this, where the stakes seemed so incredibly high.
Yes.
Well, I guess I have a little story as a palate cleanser.
Okay.
The first election that I really remember was 2008. It was Obama versus McCain. I was a teenager in an evangelical household. And so obviously our family was Republican. And at that point, all I knew from politics was what my dad had told me.
Yeah.
And so the stakes could not have been higher. Like, I remember our parents talking about how, like, if Obama was elected, it would be the end of the country, and how, like, the Antichrist would come, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we had McCain signs in our yard, and they kept getting egged.
Jeez.
And at the time, I was like, man, people are so mean. Why would they do that? But now I'm like, oh, yeah. But I asked my sister Caroline, because I don't have really strong memories of this.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my sister Caroline what she remembers from that night. She says, I remember there was a lot of despair, like our lives will never be the same.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was the end of the world. And when the results were announced on TV, we were at another homeschool family's house. We all formed a prayer circle.
Oh boy. Yeah.
It's a very strong memory I have. And to instill that type of fear in a child is really fucked up. And in the same way, I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering out there right now.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of like, this election is the end all be all. But life will go on. That's what I'm trying to say. Take a deep breath.
I think the same thing. The thing that I usually think about is the second Bush 2 election. You know, at that point, I was young, living on my own. I was a waitress, so I was around, you know, a lot of other young people with no money. So, of course, they generally were not fans of Bush, and heard so many people making the claim. They're like, if he wins, I'm moving to Canada and all that kind of stuff. And I remember,
gee, where have we heard that before?
I know, that's what but I always think that now when everyone makes all these, like doomsday claims, is I'm just kind of like, you know, all those people made it sound like the world was going to be over as soon as it happened. And then it happened. And you know what? I bet their lives are just fine now, or maybe not, but I don't think that's what made or break it. I can't talk. Made or broke.
It's okay. Yeah, exactly. I have been in that position where there was a time where I was thinking, like, wishing I could leave as well, but you're really needed here.
Yeah. And I feel like it's the same kind of thing of just like anywhere you go, you're still stuck with yourself.
Yeah.
There's no idealistic society for everyone that lives there. There's no place where everyone is lovely and gets along. So they're going to have their own problems too if you move somewhere else. And you're going to get caught up in that because that's where you live.
Yeah, I think the fallacy is like thinking that a single politician is going to save us, because that's just not going to happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
We are entering extremely tumultuous times. And I don't know, the thing I'm taking from all this is just that I can't rely on the government. Like, all I can do is rely on myself and my community.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I use that word a lot, community. It's become kind of a buzzword. But what I mean by that is not only showing up to your local elections, but like participating in mutual aid, you know, like community pantries or, you know, stuff like that. Community gardens.
Mm-hmm.
Take a class, like take a first aid course. There's so much you can do that has tangible, practical results. That's not voting. And I'm not saying like don't vote, but also
it's not going to make or break your life.
And I also don't want to bury my head in the sand and be like, everything will be fine no matter who wins. So just take a deep breath and, you know, do some yoga, keep going to work. Everything will be fine. Like, I don't think that's the case either. I think there is about to be a lot of upheaval, and it's going to be really hard. And I think that's why a lot of us are feeling really anxious right now.
Yeah.
To put it mildly.
I mean, at this point, I don't know what the change is, because it feels like a very distinct change from when I was younger. Maybe I just didn't notice. But what scares me more than who wins and who doesn't is how people react after.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing I'm also very nervous about.
Because I just feel, and like I said, maybe I wasn't noticing it because I was young. But I feel like when I was a kid or a teenager, then you could know people had totally opposite political views of you, and then you just didn't talk about it, and you were friends, and you still liked that person fine, and you didn't kick them out of your family or anything like that. Now it just seems like you see more and more people that are just like, I don't even want to acknowledge that you exist as a person if you don't think like me.
Yeah. Ooh, I mean, I feel a little called out by that. Because that's the easy thing to do, right? Is just to cut contact, not talk to them anymore. Just stay in your own bubble with your own opinions, surrounded by people who think like you do. But I mean, when I talk about community, I'm not just talking about people who think like you do. I'm talking about your next door neighbor who, has a Trump sign.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the people in your physical vicinity. And everyone's going to be so different.
I mean, I know that a lot of my coworkers are voting completely opposite of me, but that's kind of why I'm just anxious for the whole thing to be over, because otherwise they are very lovely people. But when they are sitting there, shouting about their political feelings, then I'm like, can't we just go back to where we didn't discuss this and I just liked you as a coworker?
Yeah.
Because I still like you as a coworker. I just don't want to hear about political stuff at work because that doesn't pertain to it.
I think it's been very obvious in the last year that politics is no longer something that doesn't affect everyone. I mean, it never has been, but most people haven't really paid attention. Like, we've had the luxury of not having to pay attention. Like, we as privileged white women.
So there's been many elections that I know did not have a huge effect on me one way or another.
Yeah. And like I've said before, there's so much I'm still learning and I'm wrong about. And I don't know where I was going with that. Fuck. But yeah, I think like when you used to say politics in the past, it meant something different to people. Like, let's not talk politics at the dinner table.
When I was a kid, that meant like, let's not do that because it's boring.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Precisely. It was boring. But now it's this huge contentious thing, and it does affect relationships and it does affect people's lives. And I think that's why it's even more important to have like discourse with people, even if they don't agree with you, because it's going to affect all of you one way or another. Like, no one is exempt from whatever happens, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I have very little faith right now in our government, and I feel like it shows. I'm trying to be positive, but like, this sucks. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's never too late. Like, I didn't vote for the first time until I was 26. And I still go back and forth on like how I feel about it. Voting, I mean.
I feel like it always comes around and it sounds when I know that I have to do it. Yeah, like it's going to be waiting in a line and thinking about all of this stuff, and it's kind of an inconvenience to me. And that's when I start thinking like, does it even really matter? But like I said, for some reason I get there and I'm just like, hey, I'm voting.
Well, yeah, because there's very few things in our society now where everyone shows up like en masse for a common purpose.
And maybe, even though like the majority of the time that I am thinking about how like, okay, my one vote compared to however many people, big deal. But when you are just like standing there doing it, then it's just kind of like, look, I'm doing something. Might not mean very much, but I am doing it.
Well, yeah. And it's an example of collective action versus individualism, which rules everything around us. Because like, social media is an example of just like everyone doing their own thing and talking about themselves and looking out for themselves. It's all about that individual. It's nice to be reminded that you are part of a collective.
Yeah.
We can all show up together. We can all vote together. We can all suffer together. We can all freak out together.
Yeah.
And then we can all survive together, whatever happens.
And you can meet a nice older lady in line and you can just like sit there and chat, and you might feel completely the opposite as far as what you're about to do, but you can just have a nice civil conversation.
Man, we're only at 45 minutes. I feel like we're not doing this justice. I don't know. How do you feel about it so far?
I feel okay, but I don't know. Yeah, I feel like there should be more to talk about, and I don't know what.
Well, why don't we steer back to mental health?
Probably because I'm afraid to make people mad. which is one of the big problems that we've already touched on.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to tell people what to do. I don't want them to figure out like how I feel and get upset about it. Not like me.
Well, back to mental health, though, trying to answer Madeline's question, it's just so hard.
Is there anything that you have done? Because I am most nervous as polls start closing on election night, and you start seeing like results. Is there anything that you've ever like tried to do to help with some of that anxiety? Like, do you distract yourself? Do you what?
Well, so in the past, I have gotten together with like-minded people, either to watch it on TV or, just to hang out. Actually, when Trump got elected in 2016, I remember I was with my boyfriend at the time and we went out for pizza.
Mm-hmm.
It's this little place in Austin called Pint House Pizza. Shout out. They'd have like beer and pizza. And everyone around us was talking about the election and it was on the TVs. But I remember just eating my pizza and being like, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And then I went to bed and I had a dream that Hillary won. And I thought it was real. And so you can imagine when I woke up, I remember so clearly reaching under the bed for my phone and immediately seeing the results and just feeling like the floor dropped out from under me. But then my next thought was like, okay, what now? Like, what can we do now?
Yeah.
Like, this is the reality. In a way, I think the waiting is almost worse.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking like few days after this episode come out are probably going to be.
Yeah. We are recording this Friday, November 1st with just days leading up to the election. And you can tell the tension in the air.
I think that's what I started to say in the very beginning of the episode, that it's like, yes, I just went this morning and I voted and I felt great about it and everything. But I also noticed like the immediate shift, like as soon as I walked out, then it was just suddenly like all those good feelings got replaced by anxiety and dread, because it was just like, now I've done all I can do and I just have to wait. And that's so scary.
Honestly, going back to what we'll be doing for election night, I might have mentioned it before. I'm going to Seattle next week to see some friends. And the whole trip came about because I was talking to Janai, friend of the pod, and we were expressing how anxious we were and how depressed we were. And we were both really suicidal at the time.
Yeah.
And so we planned this trip specifically so we would have something to look forward to in the days following the election.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have started out kind of as a joke, but you gotta hold your people close no matter what happens. That is all you have. And I think the fear that we have of people's reactions stems from the fact that we feel really disconnected to the people around us.
Makes sense.
Like, I struggle with seeing people as people, because they might have different values than me or whatever. But I don't know where I was going with that either. This sucks. This is going to be one of those episodes that I edit, and I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't actually bad.
Yeah. I just feel insufficient and overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed is a good feeling. Not a good feeling to have, but a good one to say for how things feel in general. I think the last couple major election nights, I've never had anything to do, but I feel like I've gotten to the point, kind of like you said, where I recognize like I still check every once in a while just to kind of like see where things stand, because I'm curious, but I try to plan things like, oh, I'm going to find some like trashy reality series on Netflix or Hulu and, get some comfort food and just, check out maybe like once an hour, just like check in and be like, how's it going? All right, back to my shit.
This particular election, like Madeline said, is so contentious and the panic is real. And so I don't even know if I will be following it on the news in real time, to be honest.
Oh, no. The last couple of times I know I do things like find a website that updates the map and gives no commentary, because the commentary will make me feel worse.
See, I can't even do the map. It's just...
Yeah, I can't imagine. I think of that like the early ones that I took part in, that I'm sure all you did is you watched it on like local news and stuff like that. I'm like, I can't imagine watching it on TV. I'd want to like punch every news anchor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I already do.
You're right.
Okay, the last thing I think we should talk about is the feeling of hopelessness people have. And I don't know, talk people down / talk ourselves down.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pretend I'm like talking to myself.
Okay.
So yeah, here's the thing. It's going to be okay. Fine. Just take a deep breath and maybe text a friend. Maybe just send a friend a bunch of screaming emojis. Or maybe just like, I don't know, maybe literally go out and scream.
Yeah. Or into a pillow.
Well, okay, another thing that I'm actually worried about, not just for me, but for listeners, is using harmful coping mechanisms to cope with this election. And this doesn't just apply to elections. This is any sort of contentious public event like COVID. I mean, you saw overdoses increase dramatically. And so I am really worried about that.
Yeah.
And to that, I would say you can't make any change if you're dead or incapacitated.
Right.
Like, even if the election didn't turn out how you want, it's not too late to make change. And like, I don't want to use language like the oppressors, but like the powers that be want you to be incapacitated.
Yeah. And I feel as you're talking about this, it makes me think about how, we've often talked about harm reduction. It's like, if you have to use like a negative coping mechanism in place of a worse coping mechanism because you just need to get through it, then do what you have to do. But don't use it as an excuse, as like, well, I should just totally fuck myself up because everything's fucked up.
Oh my God. Earlier this year, when I was suicidal, I literally told my mom, if Trump gets elected, I'm going to kill myself.
Well, you're probably not the only person who said that.
But that horrifies me. I wouldn't say that now, but I recognize where I was coming from. And it would be easy for me to go like pick up a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
For instance, on election night. Like, just here's my
say,
excuse.
Like, I just got to drink to my sorrows. I deserve it now because it's the worst I can imagine.
But what good is that going to do?
Exactly. Yes.
Nothing. It's going to be more important than ever to keep yourself safe in the months and years ahead. I was thinking about this in the context of my eating disorder and how, having an eating disorder physically weakens you. And also mentally, it keeps you from thinking as clearly as you could. And cognitively, you're not all there.
Yeah.
And that's what they want, And so I think it's going to be really important to keep myself in a state where I can fight back and I can work hard to make a difference in my community. And I can't do that if I'm not taking care of myself.
Absolutely. And that is, it's funny, like you compared some of this stuff to going through COVID, because you just made me think of the same thing. Listeners who have not heard before, I famously started treatment on the day the country went on lockdown. But
great timing.
I heard like a lot of friends that had, the same sort of history, like they really started struggling, and a lot of other people started struggling with that, like during COVID. And for me, that was actually like one of my strongest recovery focus times, because a friend happened to mention that to me, that she's like, I feel like, lost and crazy and everything. She's like, but I feel like I owe it to the world to get healthy and keep myself as healthy as I can in this time.
Yes.
And I just like, for some reason, that one just really sunk into me and I went with it. So
do you really want Trump to outlive you?
I don't want this to be the thing we end on, so I'll have to find something else to say real quick. But I know I did want to say a few things.
That's right. You had a soapbox.
Just a few things without trying to tell you who to vote for. But my family, especially my dad's side of the family, I wrote down the phrase, learning people are not who you thought they were. And that's what I feel like about all of them. I recently had like an extended family reunion, and my dad was there and a couple of my aunts were there. And the thing I think that actually got me like the most, there was lots of election talk, lots of, like making fun of people that I knew I was about to vote for in a couple months, and I just stayed quiet. But the first thing when I pull in the driveway is I see my aunt has my dad over to her truck, and she's pulling, these stickers she's got out of the back seat and showing him. And I get a look at them, and, and they say Trump 2024. And underneath that, they say, fuck your feelings.
Yeah, you sent me a voicemail about this.
Because all I could think when I saw that is, are you proud of yourself that that's your viewpoint? Not who you're supporting, that your viewpoint is fuck you having feelings. I was just like, I can't support that. I can tell you that.
Well, and I think it also speaks not just on Trump, but his supporters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to generalize because like you, I have people I love who are Trump supporters.
Yeah. I mean, I told you, I think like my mom has alluded that that's how she's voting, but she's not happy about it. She does not seem like someone that would be proud of a sticker that says fuck your feelings.
Well, that's the thing. That's why it's so hard for me to reconcile because, like, I know that my dad, for instance, would never say just fuck your feelings, but also he's supporting someone with that stance.
Yeah, that has clearly a bunch of followers that believe that.
And also the fact that, I'm going to get on a rant about religion now, but it's not very Christian to say fuck your feelings.
Oh, no. That's enough. Oh my gosh, that's the other thing that, I mean, I have to really bite my tongue around my family if I don't want to make waves, and I've considered it anyways. My mom, I feel like as she's gotten older, has just gotten like even more religious and more, force it down your throat all the time. And when she did say that about voting for Trump, I really just wanted to turn around and be like, do you think he's going to heaven?
Dude, I should ask that to my parents.
Because she had already given pretty good clues of what she thought of him, and it wasn't good, but she was going to vote that way anyways. Yeah, it was just kind of like, so is that who you're voting for? The person that you think is most like Jesus?
God.
But yeah, that's my little thing of having to just be like, I don't understand. But
I really don't understand. I mean, at this point, I hate them all. I hate the country. I just hate what our democracy has become, that like we're being shoved into this box and being told to pick two sides. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not going to say that they're the same. I'm not one of those people, but also.
But I did, I mean, I did look up a couple things while I was voting, and there was, I guess this is okay to say, because I won't say like actually who it was or anything like that. But a lot of the Missouri elections, I would see like in parentheses, like this is a Republican candidate, this is the Democrat, there's usually a Green Party is a pretty common one on there. But most of them had in parentheses better. And I was like, what's the better party? Like, are you just trying to tell me this is the better person? Because it just says better in parentheses.
I've never seen that before.
Well, apparently, I did like look it up really quick because there was one where I didn't want to vote Republican or Democrat, but I was afraid to vote something else. And so I just kind of like looked up really quick. I was like, what is this better party? Like, do they have,
Oh, it's a party.
Yeah. And it's just Missouri, though, it sounds like.
Well, maybe 2% of the listeners will find that relatable.
Yeah. But that's what, I just had to like look it up quick, that I was like, so is this like a party that got started under shit principles that I hate? Or is this someone that I would consider voting for because I don't want to vote for either of the two major ones?
Yeah.
And it's like, I know when you do that, like, that's never going to happen. Unfortunately, that's the shitty part about the two-party system, as you said. But
that's the thing. I understand people who vote for like the lesser of two evils. I also understand people who don't vote. I also understand people who do it like a statement vote for neither of the two parties. And I'm not going to say which one I am, but I think it's really key to, again, focus on the individual people, like what is driving their choices and why are they voting the way they are, and like what common ground you have.
Like, I had nothing wrong with one of my roommates that I had here. When she told me in the Trump versus Clinton election, she was just like, I really didn't like either candidate. And so...
Wait, Trump versus Clinton?
Yeah.
You mean, Hillary?
I try to be, I find it more respectful to call the female candidate, sorry, I don't care that I say female. Let's get that out of the way. I find it more respectful to call them by their last name as well. It seems to me a little...
Totally.
Yeah, so I try to do that.
Can I just say, like, I hate the way the Democratic Party this year has capitalized on that with the whole bratification.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's infantilizing her, but also, like, the voters. It's turning it into this cutesy, like, thing. It's almost like the opposite of side of the coin of, like, fuck your feelings.
Yeah, and and that's why, I felt like that with the Trump versus Clinton election, because everyone was like, Hillary this, and I was like, you're trying to make it sound like that's just some dumb chick.
Yeah, nobody called George W. Bush, like, Georgie.
Yeah.
You know?
They didn't say it was Donnie versus Hillary.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. I'm going to have so much fun editing this.
Oh, yeah. But the story that I was starting for that one is that, that my roommate said, that she was just like, I do not have any respect for either one of them. And I don't want to vote for them even as a, like lesser of two evils. So she's just like, I did a write-in candidate. I wrote in my mom. She raised 5 kids. 3 of them were special needs. She's had cancer twice. She's just like, I think she could lead a country way better than any of them. I was like, good for you.
Yes. I mean, my sister and I were joking that we were going to vote for our mom, too.
Oh.
Ginger Lou.
I would write in Ginger Lou.
2024. Someone on Reddit started a thread that was like, who do you think would never run for president, but if they did, they would win in a landslide? And one of the top rated comments was, my golden retriever, peanut butter.
Yeah.
It's just like, what is this country coming to? It's all a joke. It's all a performance. Like, it's all a stage show that's just distracting us from the things that really matter. And so, yeah, I guess the moral of this episode is, like, don't get too caught up in the contentiousness of it all, because at the end of the day, things are going to get worse, but they can also get better in your little corner of the universe. And you have a lot of agency there, whether it feels like it or not.
Yeah. On the flip side of the futility, this country is really fucking big. So,
hot take.
One person is not going to determine your entire life or the entire lives of every person in this country. Luckily, we still don't live in a dictatorship.
Yeah, I mean, also, I won't even get into the fact that American politics do actually affect a lot of the world.
True.
Outside of us. That's a...
Well, and I do hope, I was thinking that up top too, like, whether good or bad, whether it makes you feel better or it makes you feel worse about the whole topic, I hope people listening in other countries, can relate this to their own, like, election stress, because I've definitely heard people, have friends from other countries who have felt how we do when they have major elections coming up. So, yeah.
Sorry to our non-American listeners, although, like, I hope you're having fun following the shit show that is our elections. Is fun the right word?
Maybe. As soon as you said that, I saw, like, all of us, like, all the American listeners really stressed out, and everyone else just, like, munching popcorn, just like, this is great. Look at them lose their shit.
Yeah, I just want everybody to be safe.
Yeah.
And happy.
I was really afraid you were going to say, I just want everybody to get along.
No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, even we aren't that disillusioned.
But yeah, depending on when you listen to this, things will be really different.
Yeah, depending on when you listen to this, take care of yourself.
Please take care of yourself, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have thoughts or if you have any advice for people on how to handle your mental health right now, because we obviously don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's the show. We don't know shit. We do have a little bit of housekeeping, though. Like I said, I'm going to Seattle next week, so we will not be having an episode.
Yep.
But we'll have lots to talk about when I get back. And in the meantime, this is the perfect opportunity for y'all to reach out and inquire about being a guest.
If you want to be a guest, maybe.
Don't make me come back to an empty inbox, y'all. Yeah, we're oh my God, I almost said we're all in this together. I guess I just did. We are all in this together.
Right.
And That's all I got. Did you have any housekeeping stuff?
I don't think so. You already got to it. I'm just still pushing the guest thing. Pushing the guest train.
All right.
All right.
We love you guys.
Bye.
Hang in there. Oh my God. If you like what you heard, don't forget to tell a friend about our podcast. You can direct them to picklesandvodka.substack.com, where they can find our entire archive and also get access to our chat. We're on Instagram at Pickles and Vodka Podcast, Facebook.com/picklesandvodkapodcast, and YouTube.com/@picklesandvodkapodcast. My Instagram is @xtinajumper and Lauren is @LaurenAFH. We'll see you next week.